Emil Amok to you. Welcome to my takeout, my Emil Amok's takeout, my takes on all things considerable. There, I got my little AI logo, 69 Emil Amok, Anchorman. The news made me do it. It's kind of an image I use to plug my new show that I'm taking to Winnipeg in July at the Winnipeg Fringe. But I'm doing little bits here and there. I'm going to be in San Francisco. Yeah, San Francisco. I'm going to be there on Monday, the 22nd at the Monday Night Marsh. I mean, that's what they call it. They call it the Monday Night Marsh. It's at 7 o'clock, and you should go see it. It's at the San Francisco Marsh, the SF Marsh, on Valencia Street. So check it out if you can. My ticker isn't where. Oh, there it is. So you can, of course, see my columns and all those different places where I write about stuff I'm doing. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel, Emil Amok 1. You can see me at see me at the March, not the March, the Marsh, San Francisco Marsh, June 15th and 22nd at 7 p.m. I'm good. What am I going to be talking about? Of course, I'm going to talk about the news a little bit. Talk about Scott Pelley. I knew Scott Pelley. I worked with Scott Pelley. I want to get into the Scott Pelley argument because before you stick him on the Mount Rushmore of journalism, I know who else would be there. I guess Walter Cronkite. And would you put Connie Chung on there? I know. Scott Pelley, right? Scott Pelley stood up to Barry Weiss, which is admirable. But I know Scott Pelley. I know the real Scott Pelley. I knew him when he was a young buck, 20 years old, 24 years old or whatever. And he was my boss when I did the 11 o'clock news in Dallas. And I know the kind of guy Scott Pelley is. Big J journalism, but big S self, a selfishness there that I don't think people see when he stands up for the people who've been fired. Now, you say, Emil, that's such a contrary opinion. Well, I'll tell you my story, and I'll let you know. I mean, come see me tell the story at the Marsh. I'm also going to tell the story about, I went to a baseball game, and my father's death day was on Sunday. And wouldn't you know, the last thing we did when he was alive was go see the Giants play. And so it's like a thing I do. I want like a part of a ceremony to go see the Giants on the day my father died. And they won when my father died on that day, and they won on Sunday. And they won really like spectacularly. They had a home run. Oh, they had one bonehead base running error, but they had a home run. They had Logan Webb. He's the best Giant, pitching through 8 innings, striking out the Cubs. It was great. This was like the best the Giants could be. And you don't see it that often, right? Logan Webb has been up and down. Giants hit a couple home runs today in Atlanta. I mean, they're up and down. Their high-priced players are way overpaid and way underproducing. But they performed the day my dad died. The day, well, not the exact day, but my dad died 48 years ago. But I always try to go to a baseball game. I did on Sunday. So I'll talk about that. I also want to talk about my 102-year-old English teacher, my AP English teacher, because my father's important, my mother's important, but the people who really taught me how to be who I am, who helped me discover, who I was, were my teachers. And my teachers were the best teacher I ever had was Flossie Lewis. I hadn't seen Flossie in about 3 years. We were very close throughout her 90s, her 80s. She had a 100th birthday a couple years ago, and I don't know, it was good. I mean, there was a lot of people there, And I just felt, okay, she's good. She's well taken care of. And I got stuff to do in my life. And we just sort of lost touch. We got together because a friend of mine said, Flossie said, where's a meal? Bring a meal. So she brought me to see her, and it was great. And I'll tell that story. I don't know how great it was, but what she did for me that day was important. And like I said, I'll share that story. So lots of new stories I'm trying to put in, fragments of old stories, try to put in on my 69 Emil Muck Anchorman. The news made me do it. Yeah, the news made me do it. The news made me leave the news, right? And find something else in life, like pay attention to my own life. And that's what my show's about. Anyway, this show, we'll have Daniel Phil Gonzalez up here to talk about stuff. The big news, of course, is that we have what I call a Trumpic victory. There is a Pyrrhic victory when you win, but you really lose. It's a Pyrrhic victory named for Pyrrhus, who was a big F up. And Donald Trump, the stupidest president in American history, the man who took us to an unconstitutional, illegal war, a war of choice that is his war. It's a Trump war, and we get a Trumpic victory, which is no victory, which is an upside down victory, which is where we go in, we lose 14 people, we lose billions of dollars, and the people who get restored, the people who walk away with something real, something positive, the people we're beating up, Iran. Yeah, they now have the Strait of Hormuz. They have the Strait of Hormuz. They are the victors. They have leverage. Forget about the nukes. It's hardly even mentioned in the 14-point thing. And, Iran has been disavowing nukes since the 60s. And they redid it with the JCPOA with Obama in 2015. And all Donald Trump wanted to do was put his rubber stamp name on it. He just wanted a brand. I want to brand this was mine. I'm looking for a legacy. And he got into a war that was not Venezuela. He got into a war that was not a one-night stand. And now he's looking for a fig leaf. And the fact is, he doesn't have a big need for a big fig leaf. It's just a small one, 14 items, page and a half. Doesn't do what he wants it to, doesn't do what the Americans want it to. It stops the war 60 days. And then what? We go back. He said, oh, I don't want to bomb again, but I will. This is what happens when you have the stupidest president launching an illegal, unconstitutional war. You have what we call a Trumpic victory, not a Pyrrhic victory, a Trumpic victory, a victory that is a loss of face, a loss of standing, and courtesy of Donald Trump. I know it's so bad. There are no exit ramps for anyone. That this is the best we can do. That's the sad part. Anyway, let's bring up my friend Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies, San Francisco State University. He's my friend, and I just think that let's see, let's talk about stuff. Let's talk about the news. I haven't talked to you live in a while. Dan, good to see you again.
Hello. Welcome back to the Bay.
Yeah. Oh, I love the Bay. I miss Atlanta a little bit. I miss the fact that why Dan? Why do we segregate so much in California? We have
a lot of it's class.
Yeah.
More than race, but the element of race is still a factor.
Yeah.
Okay. It's still a factor. It's there's the class difference really dictates, because everything is geo-economic now.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, I noticed that when I was working in my lowly writerly journalistic jobs, and people were skyrocketing up to partner and whatnot. Uh, we didn't go on the same vacations. We didn't do the same things. And what was the difference? They had a little slightly more money, or
You
they
you,
figured
you
that
didn't do a Wednesday round of golf?
no
Wednesday
Wednesday
and
round.
Saturday?
Yeah, Wednesday. Oh yeah, the cheap day. Tuesday round of golf. No, I didn't even like to play golf because golf was sort of like, well, you know what they say. Golf is a good walk spoiled. You know, and I, I mean, I liked it. I liked it to a point, but at the end, it did become, well. Let's go, are we going to go to your club, or are we going to go to my public course I like to go to, or do?
Way worse than that for
Anyway,
me. It was way worse than that for me. My father was part of the janitorial crew at a private country club in
yeah,
Millbrae,
yeah.
and he brought me there during the summers. His work day at that club was cleanup day after the weekend, and that would mean Mondays were cleanup days. And I learned a lot that I didn't want to learn about race and segregation by being at that club, and then
Yeah.
wandering off the club premises into the surrounding white only neighborhood.
Yeah, man. And now I think if it's the same place that I think it is, they're just they just need all the members they can get. They'll accept all the Filipinos who play golf if they could.
Well, they kind of have to because of the change in the local
The
environment.
Yeah, the demographics there in Millbrae. Anyway, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's the thing about golf. It's very, very clubby. But but the whole thing about class, that's where class rears its head. Oh, you're not going to play golf with us? Oh, well, we're just going to take a spin to Disney World. You want to fly out there with us? Take your family? Can't do that. We'll go to Playland. How about we'll go, we'll go how about we I'll meet you in Disneyland? Do we have to go to Disney World? So anyway, yeah. So class does rear its ugly head.
I wouldn't want to go to Disney World because it's in Florida. And
Oh yeah.
Florida
Well,
is not one of my favorite states. I know you love them all. You think that
I
there's good stuff
I
about
want
every
to, I
state.
want to. I want to. Look, you're not the first person to say this. I recently to me, I had suggested something to a person in San Diego about Florida, and they said, "No, we're not going to Florida because of, anti-LGBTQ and all the other stuff." But I know LGBTQ people in Florida who are enduring all that, and I want to support them. And also, there are some decent. I mean, the Orlando area has been good to me. St.
Oh, that's
Pete.
where they shot what and killed what
Oh,
52
that's the
people.
Pulse.
Oh
The
yeah,
the
at the
Pulse
Pulse
shooting 10 years ago.
with a
Boy,
great fully automatic weapon.
I
Wonderful.
tell you that Pulse shooting, it came back and hit me 10 years. 10 years this week or last week, and I visited that Pulse site a couple of times since I've been to Orlando, and it's devastating. But maybe it's a segue to get to a topic. You know, I was in Washington to speak, and convene with these AAPI against gun violence groups. It included the Newtown Action Alliance, Asian Americans in Newtown, right? Sandy Hook, APIA Vote, OCA, Asian Pacific American, Advocates, Moms Rising, a lot of groups. And they're trying to push this idea that instead of the gun debate being about individual gun rights and gun ownership, that we steer clear of that and start reframing the debate and talk about freedom from gun violence. As if, I mean, the premise is Americans should have freedom from gun violence. They mentioned some startling statistics. How gun violence now the leading cause of death of children and teens. 58% of American adults or someone say they care about has experienced gun violence. It's half, more than half. 70% of American adults report experiencing some level of anxiety or stress about gun violence. Potential visitors to the U.S. are even warned of shooting risk. And so they're saying we live in this perpetual fear of gun violence. And if you're debating someone on the gun issue and they're talking about gun rights and gun ownership, and I mean, forget that. Let's move on and talk about freedom from gun violence. Is that an effective reframing of the debate in your eyes, Dan?
Maybe, maybe I'm lukewarm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much more difficult to deal with than that. It is a way forward, okay,
Yeah.
but the argument anchored in the Second Amendment is very strong. Not necessarily because it's fair or logical or justiciable, okay,
Mhm.
but because it's there in the Constitution and it's open to the broadest interpretation. And as a result, it is definitely a cornerstone. I'm going to say it. It's a cornerstone element of American culture and political culture, particularly
Yeah.
when something is that deeply rooted in culture. It's very difficult to address, and
Well,
especially if you want to limit in some way or another, okay, guns. Either
yeah.
the presence of guns, the kinds of ammunition, who gets to have the guns, how they should be kept. All of those issues are right up front. And in some states, we have dealt with it more effectively than others.
Well, but the point these people are making is that, okay, great. Second Amendment, 2A, yeah, we accept that. You're right. It is part of our culture. It's part of American, it's a part, it's in the Constitution. But freedom, the core value of freedom and freedom from gun violence should also be something that should pull people from that side and bring them toward a common ground. So instead of the loggerheads debate about the Second Amendment that we seem to always have, I mean, we've been debating about this for decades, right? And never really going anywhere. But if we frame it as a freedom from gun violence debate, excuse me, and we say that no matter our color or background or zip code or income, all of us want the freedom to move through our lives without the anxiety and fear that gun violence could erupt at any time. And if we break away from the guns everywhere lobby and we just try to make this freedom from gun violence the issue, not gun ownership, not not even gun safety, really we put it on everyone. How do we are free from gun violence? Because even gun owners, 2A people, they don't want to see their lives shattered by gun violence. No one does. And that's how maybe these people have devised a framework that we can at least talk and find common ground amongst all Americans, really is the hope.
Sure, that's the hope. What can I tell you, man? I mean, we're talking about gender,
Mm-hmm.
masculinity, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And look at
Mm-hmm.
the way masculinity is being expressed right now,
Right.
okay? The
Yeah.
martial arts in which I have partial training, right?
Mm-hmm.
A variety of different experiences in the martial arts, and the people that I learned from were traditional martial artists, and the Zen philosophy was a
Mm-hmm.
part of everything that we learned. Okay, even in the Chinese martial arts, there's philosophical commitment against the use of violence unless it's called for as a matter of defense, either defense of oneself or others. And that's
Mm-hmm.
consistent with the US Constitution, right? With laws about criminal violence. So it was very easy for us to accept that. But that seems like four generations away in comparison to UFC
Yeah.
and MMA. And my students several of my students were involved in MMA competition and suffered injuries. Hopefully, that won't affect their later lives. But we all know that as you age, those kinds of injuries you get in your youth, come back to haunt you
Yeah.
later. I'm hoping that they have the least of problems with those. But I'm very much familiar with that. I'm familiar with the abuse of what they know, what people know in the martial arts. Uh, there was a period of time when kung fu movies were popularized, right?
Yeah.
And
So
the theaters down in Chinatown were packed with people
yeah.
who understood that it was a lot of fakery. It was a lot of use of trampolines and guy wires and everything else, but it popularized the use of certain weapons on the
Yeah.
street, so much so that they had to be outlawed.
So bring it back to guns. What you're saying is that this idea of freedom from gun violence. Well, it sounds like you're underwhelmed by the new framework, but it makes it sound like you just think that it's not going to catch. You don't think?
I think it might have minimal effect. It's already the freedom from gun violence is already an issue that most legitimate gun owners are willing to address. Okay.
Right. That's part of the debate. That's part of the engagement.
Well, but see, the people who are stopping it are the people who are getting money from this process. The people, particularly in both parties, who are getting money, okay, from gun manufacturers, right? Either directly or indirectly, okay, by donations to their campaigns. That's one matter. And so people who have been signing off on that have to be called out. Now, the reality is there are far more people on the Republican side, right, and on the so-called conservative side that are diehard gun rights. Okay, and what do? They frame their rights in terms of, well, I'm a hunter, right, and we do things in responsible way, all the rest of that. Okay, and that's legitimate. That's legitimate.
Right.
But the problem is there's enough people who have guns, access to that are really in it for the potential of being able to do violence. Okay, that's the way you have to understand this. That there is a large segment of the gun owning population, okay, that think I have the potential to defend myself. Oh, that's a good thing, all right. But I also have the potential to kill. They're not thinking about the potential to wound. They're thinking about the potential to kill. Okay, and that is something that they hold dear. Is that potential, okay, of life and death? That's what it's about. That's the psychology, okay, that supports the culture that uses the Second Amendment as a rationale.
So to find some kind of common ground, because that person who might have that bloodthirst to kill, he's got a family, and he's got friends that he doesn't want to see bad things happen to them. Certainly, that's going to be an avenue or an area where common ground could be found.
Boy, that is really naive. That is really naive.
I have to say it because that's sort of where this idea of freedom from gun violence is headed.
Which is exactly why I'm saying it's really weak. The kinds of people who are going to be willing to use gun violence are the same kind of people that do stuff like, the craziness of doing donuts out in the middle of the goddamn intersection. Okay? That's the kind of people we're talking about. We're talking about people who are doing 110 miles an hour on the freeway, right? And buzzing past us, right?
All right,
as we go by. They don't care about their families the way you think.
That's going to be a minority. Don't you think there could be a majority of people who are too? I mean, but don't you think there's?
Yeah, but are they going to be able to stop the people who are willing to do the violence?
Well,
that's the issue.
We see what happens when Republicans, right, conservatives, find themselves splintered off with a MAGA group that don't agree with them, and then suddenly the MAGA group becomes the tail that's wagging the dog, and all the Republicans become, MAGA types, and some have moved over and have sort of moved into the independent ranks, or maybe they're Democrats like the George Conways, or the people who read the Bulwark and that kind of thing.
Okay, well, essentially, okay.
But there's some
Let's make it
people.
clear. So there's things like the Epstein files that unite, interestingly enough, extreme MAGA, right,
Right.
with progressive left.
Right.
Okay, there's no question. So the question is, can you do that around guns? And my answer to that is only in very limited terms, because you're not going to get the people on the extreme right, whether or not they consider themselves MAGA or conservative or Republicans or whatever. You are not going to get them to accept limitations on those rights in any way, shape, or form.
Well, it would be limitation if we get away from limitation of rights or any kind of two-way loggerheads kind of debate. It's all just about freedom from gun violence. Do Americans deserve to be free of gun violence?
It's really ridiculous. Really ridiculous. You really have you ever been in a gang fight?
Well,
have you ever been in a street fight?
I've punched someone, but I've never been in a gang fight. No.
All right. Well, I have, and a lot of people around me have. And one of the reasons we got into martial arts was self-defense. Okay, and so that was a very popular thing in the crowd that I ran with. Okay, cars, girls, martial arts, music, like kind of in those areas. Okay, now our kids didn't necessarily follow. Some of the people who were really expert in the martial arts, their kids did follow, and they do follow the philosophy of the martial arts, the basic humanitarian philosophy of the martial arts. Those people also understand violence and the nature of violence. The question is always, when do you make those extremely tough choices to move? Okay, the reason that I didn't like to fight was not just because I was afraid of being hurt. I didn't want to do violence.
Yeah, well,
it was simple as that. I still don't want to do violence, but I understand people who can and are willing to do violence. We're in a culture right now where that has taken precedent, especially among men.
Right. I know that the whole idea of the toxic male thing. Yes, I understand that, but I think this is a way that some anti-gun or gun control advocates are trying to frame the debate so there can be discussion, because when there's no discussion, nothing happens. And we know that there's policy that they're trying to push that could.
It's not. Look at. There are more than enough people now, including people who are still members of the NRA, for example, right? Which is the most pro-gun, obviously political lobby, but it's worse than that, right? Because there's the donation of dark money and all the rest of that, okay? And it's also a very local thing. It's a local cultural thing as well, okay? Now, if we understand all of that, then we have to understand that, yes, there are people who are going to be willing to do some kinds of restrictions on gun rights. There has to be. You can't frame this and say, look, we just want to stop gun violence. We think you want to focus on gun violence. How are you going to do that when there's so many guns out there and so many people with them?
Right.
How are you going to do that?
Well, that's a problem, but there's policy that some people can, are ready to push forward. Things like universal background checks, National Gun Registry, permit to purchase requirements.
Sure.
I mean, all these things. Yes. I mean, it's not. It's just a way to get us off the old debate that has never gotten anywhere. Yes, but see, I know that people.
But I'm saying all of those things already exist. It's been at least 50 years that some of those things have already existed. Okay. What happened when locally, Moscone and Milk get assassinated by an ex-cop? An ex-cop who's also an ex-fireman, who's also a member of the board of supervisors, right? He was an Eagle Scout, okay, a decorated Vietnam veteran, and he did that, all right? And what? How was he punished? Involuntary manslaughter.
Well,
diminished capacity, right? That's how he was punished. He what? He did less than 3 years, is my recollection. And he was back out on the street, and he came to the neighborhood, my neighborhood, right? The Excelsior, Outer Mission area.
He lived on my mom's block.
Hey, there you go. He a church going guy. Viz Valley Church, all that stuff, right? Okay. And he expected to be welcomed back into the community again.
Well,
and when he wasn't, okay, he couldn't tolerate that. Just like he couldn't tolerate Mr. Milk, just like he couldn't tolerate Mr. Liberal Moscone, right? And he took himself out. Okay, so I thought that was grossly unfair. I thought that he should be, he should remain alive, and he should suffer the consequences, because the system did not render justice.
Well, I just say that people want a lot of the things that you say are already.
And all he got to do is get Congress to move, is to get states to move, okay? But even when California has moved ahead of everybody else, right? The kind of policies that they come up with, the kinds of laws that they pass are minimally effective, and they always have sunset provisions.
Yeah, well, that's one. Yeah, right? That's one of the things. That's how you get it through. You say, well, we'll put it out there, and the problem will be solved. We'll sunset. We won't need this anymore, and then we do need it, and it comes back. I mean, the assault weapons ban was in order, and then it was not in order, and then
Well, remember when the first bans were enacted here in California, right, in the 70s? Okay, the first bans, but what did they do? The people who were selling the guns said, okay, they're not assault weapons, they're tactical.
Yeah.
Okay, so all they did was change the language.
Right.
Okay, so then the language started to include specific descriptions of the guns.
Yeah.
Right, particularly rifles, that were capable of conversion to full automatic, that were semi-automatic. And I said, you know how ridiculous that is? Just that they're semi-automatic, because that means that you can pull the trigger as fast as that. Okay. And I said, you know what that means, man? You can empty a clip in less than 10 seconds. Yeah. Okay. And so people thought they were safe. Come on, man. That's crazy. Why do we need 50 caliber BMG ammunition to be available generally?
Well, why do we need so many AK 47s and AR-15s?
It's a felony. It's a felony to point a green laser at an airplane, and you can go to jail for that, right? But it's okay for you to have a 50 caliber rifle, okay, that can take that plane down. So this is stupidity. Okay, they outlawed BB guns and pellet guns in San Francisco because hoodlums were punking out the street lamps. Okay, but if you get caught with a concealed weapon, that's still a misdemeanor in most parts of California.
Well, the laws are inconsistent. All these gun control people want to do is move the debate forward. Excuse me. Move the debate forward. So we're talking about a situation. We're talking about trying to find the end result, which is a freedom from gun violence, which we don't have now because there's too many guns. They've proliferated like crazy over the last 20 years.
There it is.
And how do we talk about it and not get stuck in the same Second Amendment loop? And so I think it's good. I don't think it's naive. I think it gets people talking about it. And when people start seeing, the kind of people who are affected by it and how it's affected their families and their own lives, I think, we can hope for a little humanity.
Well, okay. So what do the people who have actually suffered losses as a result of gun violence, what do they say? Do they say, we just talk
No,
about it?
well, they
That
don't say we just
reframe the
no. Well,
language, or do they want restrictions on who gets a
well,
gun?
I think
Do they want greater punishment on people who have illegal possession of
well, part of
firearms?
it is we got to get to that part where we have the discussion, where we have the understanding. To get to the policy part is going to be harder because, yeah, some of it is going to revolve restrictions about who can have and who cannot have. And it have to do with, who has the mental capacity or who has a diminished mental capacity or,
And they keep blaming it on on psychology, and the people the
well,
people who
I'm
commit the
saying,
crime
I'm saying
ain't that
that's one
crazy.
aspect. That's one aspect of it. But, someone's going to have to determine, who is. I mean, we're not at that point yet. We're just at that point where we're talking. How do we get a society? How do we get an America that's free of gun violence? How do we get that? We have to have some kind of reasonable laws, some that restrict ownership. And there's, you might cite, oh, well, the absolutists will never go for that, but I think there might be a number of people, maybe the majority of people, who will find agreement with the anti-gun folks who say, yeah, we all deserve to be free from gun violence, and maybe we
Well,
can come out with
okay.
something.
Before the event that you
Mhm.
attended, okay, Lucy McBath had a news conference. I mean, I think it was on the 9th.
Lucy McBath.
It was just yes, and whose son was killed by gun
Mhm.
violence. And one of the things that she was talking about was domestic violence.
Yeah,
So she made a direct
yeah,
connection between domestic violence and gun violence,
hmm,
right?
yeah,
And they made a direct connection between the presence of guns in environments where there is physical assault,
yeah,
okay,
and
and therefore saying, okay, there's got to be restrictions, there's got to be greater penalties. The thing is that the kind of person who commits domestic violence that has a gun is going to get a gun even if they're restricted from having it.
well,
That's the problem.
well, it,
They are violent people.
well, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. That's the old saying, right? If if guns are banned, only criminals have guns, or what's that saying? You know,
Yeah, that's the way they
yeah,
said it.
and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. If guns are outlawed, only outlaws will
guns,
have
yeah.
guns.
And look, and there are groups within this coalition who believe with Lucy McBath that, yeah, you got to look at domestic violence, you have to look at suicides, you have to look at all these things. I mean, I think people are grasping at straws to try to find a way that we can make some sense out of the gun violence we see every day.
And I agree.
And
And I agree with
well,
that. I
just
agree with the conversation and all the rest of that stuff. But what I want are really effective
well, all
policies.
right. Well,
That's what I
we
want.
don't get to policy if we don't talk. We don't get to we
Look,
well,
look. If there's going to be talk, if there's going to be talk, people should vote for people who are going to pass the damn
well, that's
laws.
true. I
That's
mean,
what has to
well,
happen.
that's sort of what
You want to be real? That's real.
you're
Okay.
referring to, who funds whom, and what lobbies and what dark money and what big money supports what candidate. I mean, that basically boils down. You got to go to the lawmakers. What the law?
Yeah, but you got people. Look at what's happening. We got the grossest. You covered it earlier, right? You got the dumbest president,
Mhm.
right? Who's doing the grossest exercises of trying to proclaim his legacy in advance of his
Yeah,
passing, right? And leave all of these monuments to himself, okay? And spending hundreds of millions and billions of dollars on a war that's already cost more lives than he even cares about. You see how dismissive he
yeah,
is? Okay, 13, 14 people got
yeah,
killed and thousands of people died. The Civil
yeah,
War, thousands of people died. The Vietnam War. Oh, that's cool.
yeah,
Okay. And then look at all of the hundreds of millions of dollars that were spent on those
yeah.
wars. Okay.
Well,
This is crazy. And you still got people who say, I would never vote for a
yeah.
Democrat. You
Well,
know,
or
it was,
I'll never.
I'm a
How about
Republican. Okay, good for
how about
you.
people?
Good
How
for
about people
you.
say, "I'll never vote for a black woman. I'll never vote for a woman," and
Well,
and you saw
yeah.
you saw that.
it was all Harris's
Yeah,
fault,
and you saw
right?
that
The fact that
outburst,
she didn't get elected was her fault. She was not an electable
right? And
person. Yeah, well, what about the guy that hung on?
yeah, it wa-
What about the guy that wanted to go for a second term?
yeah. Well, you saw
Yeah.
the outburst at the fight at the Sunday fight where one of the fighters said Michelle Obama is a trans woman. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of that misogyny, racism that we still have to fight. So yeah, look, Dan, I agree with you. Policy is the end goal, but
No, no, no. The end goal is getting the guns off the street and out of the hands of violent prone
right,
persons.
but
That's
but
the
you
goal.
mentioned policy and getting politicians who will change the law and getting politicians who will.
And do
Yeah.
enforcement, right?
Well, I think we have some people who would take who would have the political will if they saw that there were people out there who were speaking out, but a lot of people aren't. So it's easier just to take the money and shut up, or just to do nothing. And
Well, when we have people running for local office, it's really
yeah,
easy, right? Just ask the
yeah.
question.
Well, I think a lot
You
of
know,
people right now are saying, and the reason why this coalition is getting together is because they're just tired of the old debate which hasn't gotten us anywhere, and they're just looking for a
there
new
it
way
is.
to move it
There
forward.
it is.
So that's why. Now you may think it's stupid, you may think it's naive, because
I don't think it's
well, but
stupid,
you think it's
but I
naive.
do think I do think it's
Yeah,
naive.
but I don't think it's naive. I think it's a start, and it's in a direction that it certainly may seem naive after an era of Trump where anything goes, and
That's the problem.
and that that
That's
that
the
is a
problem.
problem, because after Trump, we don't go back to 100% absolute rule of law or decorum or normalcy. We just try to figure out, well, what stays, what kind of things can we get away with, and that's a problem. What kind of things can we?
Do they get to keep the
Yeah,
money? Do they get to keep the
right,
money?
right.
Do they get to keep the
Because
money?
all it is
Okay.
really is, what can I do uh, uh, that would get me in jail, that I could stay out of jail? What can I do that would normally get me in jail, but I can stay out of jail because we have
Okay.
a
Okay.
Trumpian,
You want to know what you can do? You can follow the BB
the B,
the BB
the BB
direction.
direction.
Okay. Yeah. Follow Mr. Netanyahu, because he was able to convince the president of the most powerful country in the world that it'd be a good idea to go ahead and declare war, on his
Yeah,
own, right? Independently of
on Iraq.
Congress,
Yeah.
make a war
Well,
against
this is
Iran.
the thing.
There you
This
go.
is the thing. And this is one of those moments in history we say, "Oh my God, do we ever get back to normal? Do we ever get back?" I mean,
Oh my God, do we ever get back to the point where we say Israel is not the greatest nation,
well,
right?
there's
Israel is not a humanitarian institution.
there's that, but there's also, do we get back to this normal where we believe in the rule of law, and the kind of decorum and the kind of respect, mutual self-respect, and we believe in humanity, uh, which we're losing every day AI advances. So these are the issues we face as we try to figure out, how do we deal with,
Well, but the same guys, look how dependent we have become
on what.
on the guys that we now criticize because they're billionaires. We built them. We buy their products. We use their services, right?
Yeah.
And now we have become dependent on them,
Well,
right? When my freaking internet goes down, when our internet goes down, we're out of it, man.
Yeah, well,
we're,
I
we're
didn't know.
not
I'm not on
communicating.
Skylink, but let's see. No, I don't think anything. Well, are they all Musk related?
What? You're not on Starlink, but the government
Oh
is.
yeah, yeah. The government. Well, that
Okay.
was one of the.
So you're free of any considerations of what the government does. Okay. Oh, that's cool. Give me some of that, Emil. Damn.
Yeah. Well, I no,
Okay. You're free of the manipulation of the stock market by simply saying, "We got a deal. We got a deal. It's going to get signed this way." Look at hey. Nothing suspicious about declaring this on my birthday. You know, nothing suspicious. Nothing suspicious about we don't even let any information out. We don't see
Oh,
anything in writing.
now everything's
You'll
out.
see that on Friday.
Yeah.
You'll see that on Friday when the black previous president, right, opens up his museum, his presidential museum. Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
I just
this is very creepy, Emil. This is extremely creepy.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I'm saying anything short, right, of going for hard edged accountability is a waste. It would essentially be the same as what you call the Trumpic victory.
Yeah.
It's a major loss. I mean, people are saying this is the greatest defeat in American history.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is military people are saying
the Wall Street Journal. Wall Street Journal called it a retreat.
Yeah, but they're not military.
Yeah. But no, we're in a sad time, but yet these issues are going to keep up, and like guns, and I don't know what the answer is. I don't know where the answer is, but I know that people are willing to form coalitions across race lines, across class lines, and ultimately, who backs the politicians? Because the lawmakers,
there it is.
The lawmakers are going to be deciding. Well, who do we have to?
It starts at the point. I can't remember which guy said it, but it was a Northeastern Democrat who said all politics is local.
Oh, that was Tip O'Neill.
Yeah, it was O'Neill. Yeah, and he's right. I mean, that's absolutely correct. And so that's really part of the major issue is if we're going to find common ground and we're going to say we want to shift, right, the emphasis of the discussion about guns, right, to how do we lessen gun violence? Okay, that's something that we should be talking about at the local level, and everybody should be talking about it. We don't talk about it that much in the Bay Area, right? Even though there's if not weekly, sometimes there's daily gun violence.
Well,
right in here.
All these they're mostly mothers, but they're gun groups. It was AAPI groups, and I was very honored to be invited to be in their presence, and I just think that this is a beginning for AAPI groups. I know that AAPI groups in general are anti-gun, but it's complicated because
the communities that are that are within the penumbra of Asian American Pacific Islander. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's true. But at the same time, there are certain ethnic groups that have a higher incidence of violence, including gun violence, than others within the AAPI.
Yeah, there was a Hmong guy who was there, and he's a gun owner, and he's in on the conversation. He says, I got an AR-14 or 15. I don't know why. I mean, I want one. I have one, and
it's the potential. It's the potential.
And so
it's the romance.
He talked about that, but he also talked about how when he got into groups with AAPI, talking about guns, no one was a gun owner, and then he was one of the first. He's one of the first. So I'm just saying this is stuff that we need to talk about, and we'll get to the harder policy points later. But I think it could work. Of course, we're talking about generational debates. At least if we could talk in a way that we can find common ground, it's a lot better than the way that we've talked about it for decades and have been, no further than square one, because it's all just.
I think there are times, especially after I had another incidence of mass shootings, what has sickened me over the last 10 years is the frequency of mass shootings has increased, right?
Oh yeah.
And they're still most of the time related to schools,
Yeah.
okay? Schools and places of worship. And those are two of the most sacred elements, right? Of
Mm.
any society, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Our
there.
protection of our children, right? And our
Yeah.
places of worship.
They're, even as we spoke at that conference last week, there was that shooting instance in Texas,
Yes.
where where it wasn't even that big, but it was big enough. I mean, enough people were hurt. I think one or two people died, but it wasn't a mass. It was a mass shooting, but the number of deaths, well, two are too many, but it was just it was just ironic that we're talking about gun violence in here, in Washington D.C. We're talking about it, and there was on the news on the last day of the conference. Oh, this, I think it was Waco or Lubbock. It was or Midland. It was in Midland, Texas. So
Well,
yeah,
you
so
know that we have a second home in Fairfield.
yeah,
Well, 2 weeks ago, shooting, one died, one student died
oh
at
yeah,
a graduation
yeah.
exercise or after the graduation exercise. Okay.
Yeah, see, I mean that's the thing about freedom from gun violence. I mean, it really affects everyone, and it's sort of like if America had a spine, and all these issues came off, like you know, public education and housing and civil rights. There's a, like, down the spine. There's this gun violence issue that runs through all the issues,
Yes.
intersects all the
Yeah.
issues, and we can't escape it. And we should at least try to find a way to talk about it. And I don't think that's naive. I think it's important. But like you said, if you talk about the local level, start talking about it, and that's where the buzz starts happening, and people start talking about, you know, local crime, and start talking about gun violence and people getting shot. I think maybe that we'll start to see maybe some movement. That's a hope. Anyway, so Dan, I I guess we talked about the JCPOA and the
Oh
Iranian,
man.
the Iran war. I don't think people really
No, you talked about
care.
it. I didn't talk about
Yeah, I don't think people care about it
it.
so
You
much.
exactly.
I think that what they care about is, why am I paying $6.50 for
Yes.
gas in California?
Yes.
Why am
And
I
it's
paying?
that short-sightedness that also, okay, that's why I think moves short of that are naive. It's
Yeah.
because the public doesn't really care. Okay. I was asked, well, what about these people? Shouldn't you be talking to them? And I said, I talk to people like that if I know that they're open to
Mhm.
some form of discussion. But
Yeah.
but I don't want to waste my time talking to people that I know are unwilling to accept what we have to say. Okay.
Yeah.
So once they put that wall up, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going
Yeah.
to waste my energy doing that. Okay. So
Yeah.
forgive me for not wanting to do that. I think that's up to the pastors, people who are a lot more patient,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
with non-believers than me. Look at all of the Christians that voted for Trump.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, some of them are really twisted Christians. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
they
They have to be.
practice
Yeah.
the kind of Christianity that is diabolical.
Yeah.
In its
It's the opposite.
opposition
It's the
to
opposite
Christ.
of the
Yes,
liturgy.
absolutely.
The first will be last. No, the last will be first. No, the first will be first. The first will be first. All the time, and the last will be last. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
They're rewriting
How about
scripture.
blessed be the meek?
Yeah, blessed be the me. Blessed be the me,
Yeah,
not the me, the
right on,
me.
right on.
It's the selfishness,
Oh,
in
absolutely.
America.
Oh,
All
absolutely.
right, so Dan, all right, so that's it. Got to run. Yeah, you're not watching the World Cup much, but you saw
Oh
Messi
yeah,
score his three
yeah.
goals.
I watched the highlights, and if there's a national competition, right,
Mm.
that from an international relations point of view is kind of interesting, I'll watch those. I'll tune in and see how they're doing. But
Well,
uh,
I think it's good. I think interesting. We can solve some things on the pitch. Iraq, I think, was playing somewhere in the
yeah,
U.S. the other
yeah,
day, so
yeah.
that was kind of interesting. But usually these nationalistic things, you worry that
There's
things
got
would
to be
get
some
kind of
confrontations like
violent.
occur, yeah, that have occurred elsewhere in the
Yeah,
world.
but
Yeah.
it's sport. It's sport, and
Well, one of the things that we didn't talk about is the cost. The cost. Okay, that FIFA
there's a
is
lot.
making big bucks off of this stuff. The secondary sales were ridiculous, right? But
Yeah,
people were getting in here
yeah.
in San Jose, Santa Clara. They were getting in
Yeah,
on the second to the last day and the last day, before the game. They were
yeah.
getting in for $80.
Yeah,
So
that's what I noticed. Friends of mine who were watching in Cleveland and Atlanta said, "Oh, there's lots of tickets."
there is.
And
Yeah,
there was a good game in Atlanta with Spain. There was a good game in Cleveland, but people were saying, "Oh, if you want tickets, just come to Cleveland." Practically, there's all these people there, or there's all these tickets left, and so I don't know. And then I don't know how the stadium suddenly seemed filled, like when I watched
sure.
the Atlanta
Yeah,
stadium
yeah.
the other day. But it's good. I think it's good because I think America is good. As a former Class C soccer coach, I think, boy, skills have always been our issue, real pure soccer skills. But now I think we got it. And I also think now the best athletes are playing soccer. Not the best, not the absolute best, but we have some pretty damn good athletes who are playing. And because I noticed color, we have a squad that is not just one or two African Americans, but there's a lot of people of color on our squad. It's not like it's a far cry from
It,
Kyle Rote Jr. in the MS or the
sure. It's
NASL.
more representative. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's more representative of our immigrant culture and
Well, we had the
uh,
opportunity for that in San Francisco
yeah,
because the groups that occupy the greatest concentration of soccer fields in the city, right, which is
right,
Crocker Amazon Park,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Latino and Pacific Islander,
yeah, and
predominantly
also
someone.
someone, yeah. Well, actually, when I played, the Europeans were big. The English and the Irish and the Greeks, and there are a lot of yeah. You
Yeah, but
see a
which
great
fields were they
diversity on the
playing on?
pitch.
Which fields were they playing on? In Golden Gate
Well,
Park?
no, Beach Chalet, yeah, Beach Chalet out
That's
there,
Golden Gate Park.
Golden Gate
Yeah.
Park. They would play, in well, when I was growing up around Dolores Park, they took the entire green down there. It was
Mhm.
mostly the Mexicans and the Latinos,
That's right.
and but that wasn't a real field, and it was also kind of sloped. So the best fields were actually, Crocker Amazon. I played there a bunch of times, Crocker Amazon and Beach
Yep.
Chalet.
Yep.
So anyway, I don't play any soccer now, but I like to watch every now and then. And boy, when the Americans played, I was on the airplane and I got to watch a little bit. And boy, Christian Pulisic pulled it together. But that Flo Balogun, man, he was,
Yep.
he's
They're
good.
looking
He's
good.
good.
They're
He's
looking
good.
good.
So
All
all
right,
right,
man.
so
Thanks for
all
having
right,
me
so
on. Happy
take
Father's
care.
Day.
Yeah, happy Father's Day. I did my pre-Father's Day where I went to the ball game on my father's death day, and that's sort of like my Father's Day. And so, because Father's Day always, it's his day, and now so I celebrate him on his death day, and then maybe I'll get some Father's Day action, for me, uh, this week. I think they'll take me out to brunch or something.
Yeah, and I get my pick of wherever I want to, eat or whatever I want to do. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was thinking ball game too. So I
Ball
like to
game,
go.
ball game is always fun. But boy, the Giants put it together. I don't know if the Giants are in town
No,
Sunday.
not this Sunday. I don't know.
Yeah,
I gotta
because
look.
they put it all together on my father's death day on the 14th. It's like they won 5-1, and it's like this is the team that we thought was going to be there, and they paid all this money to all these overpriced stars who aren't playing like stars. So anyway, all right. So Dan, happy Father's Day to you.
Happy gun-free safety and
Gun,
lack of violence Father's Day. You know, let's just have a
yeah,
Father's Day where nobody gets shot. Let
freedom from gun violence. Freedom from gun
anywhere
violence.
in at least the 9 Bay Area counties, please. Let's
Okay.
not anybody get shot. Don't do any shooting. If possible, don't do any violence. Right?
Put your guns away. Don't even think about that back heel
Uh,
kick. No
yeah.
back heel kicks, no
Nah,
MMA moves, nothing. Just shake hands,
yeah.
nod your head.
You know, no,
Okay.
no. See this? Peace out.
Peace out. There he
Peace.
goes. Daniel Phil Gonzalez, my friend, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University professor emeritus. Yeah, Dan's a gun owner. But he's responsible. But I always like to talk to him about guns because he'll think whatever I say is naive. That I think that we're gonna go and try. We just want to get a debate. We want to get a conversation going. And the one thing about the 2A debate is it never got off the ground. Never. We've been talking about guns for years on talk radio. I was talking about, hey, guns beget violence. Violence begets violence. Guns beget violence. We don't need the proliferation of guns. I was talking that way in 1991, and here we are, right? 30 years later, a generation later, and guns have only proliferated. So we got to try stuff like approach from a new angle, freedom from gun violence. We all have a right to that. That's not in the Constitution, but we all have a right to that. All right. So don't forget, the Trumpic victory. Are you celebrating the Trumpic victory? I know that it's a defeat, right? It's hey, you wanna win big, get in a war with the United States, and then we'll let him declare a Trumpic victory, and and then we'll go away, and we'll get everything we want. I mean, Iran's got everything it wants. It gets what the United States to rebuild everything. They might as well make Iran the 52nd state if Venezuela's going to be the 51st state. This is a war that we should never have been in. We know that, but we're there, and like I said with Dan, no one cares, right? They just care about the $6.50 gas, which I couldn't do it. Because usually I had to buy premium for a car, or I went to a place and all the gas was over $6. I couldn't pay for more than a gallon until I got back to my hybrid, and I said, okay, then I can, and back to a place where gas prices were like $5.80, $5.90. But you go out in San Francisco, $6.40 at this one Shell station. My God, 1 gallon, good enough to get me to a cheap gas place. But that's what people care about. The war and the economy. I don't see how the Iran war is going to. Oh, the gas prices are going to drop like a rock. Stock market up like a rocket. Stock market. Oh, if only those were really the parameters that made a difference, that made America great again. They're not. All right, so see me on Monday night. I'll be at the Marsh in San Francisco, 1062 Valencia, 7 o'clock, talking about a bunch of stuff, talking about Flossie Lewis, 102. The lesson I learned from Flossie, my English teacher, still alive. And I made up to, we had I didn't see her for a couple years, and then finally I went to see her, and we're back. Flossie and I are back. It's not Harold and Maude. It's more like she's my booby. She's my booby. So I'll talk about that. And also talk about Scott Pelley. Scott, who I know what Scott Pelley's about. Don't make him into saint journalism. He's not. He's too self-serving. Remember, these are Trump times. These are Trump times. He's too self-serving for saint journalism. You don't stand up to Barry Weiss, and you don't do that and lose everything. You do it because you gain something. You gain some kind of standing, and you see it's happening. That's the Scott Pelley way. So we'll talk about that. Fun stuff. I mean, we were young 20-something reporters together. But look where he is, and look where I am talking to you. Yeah, see? All right. Emil Guillermo here. We're going to end this. Yeah, see me at the Marsh. I'll finish that story. And read me on Substack, Inquirer.net, Oakland Post, ASAM News, Hawaii Filipino Chronicle, and all the other parts of my vast semi-empire. All right. We like to close with a little loving kindness. Because yeah. Sharon Salzberg, she's my guru. She said, yeah. And so as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Ease. That's what we're going for. Ease. Till next time. Emil Guillermo here. Mahal.